Hello, my friends. Are you thinking about applying for U.S. citizenship? Well, today we're going to talk about some important things to consider before you apply. First things first, are you eligible to apply? Meaning, are you qualified or permitted to apply? Let's look at some general requirements. 1. You are 18 years old or older when you file the Form N-400, which is that application for naturalization. You are a lawful permanent resident, meaning you have your green card. You need to demonstrate continuous permanent residence in the United States for at least 5 years or 3 years if you are married to a U.S. citizen. That means that you can't break a continuous residence, so you can't take trips that are longer, especially trips that are longer than 6 months. So then you will break that continuous residence. Have you been physically present in the United States for 30 months or 18 months if you are married to a U.S. citizen? Okay, again, this goes to how long have you been in the United States and if it has been continuous. And this physically present, how many days have you been in the United States? Okay. Have you lived for at least 3 months in the state or USCIS district where you claim residence? So before you apply, you need to be living in your state for at least 3 months before you apply. So you can't move and then apply right away. Okay, you have to be present in that area for at least 3 months before applying. And last things here is if you have a parent that was a U.S. citizen either by birth or by naturalization before you turned 18 years old, then you may already be a citizen. So be careful here because we have had some people that are already citizens and they apply for citizenship. They don't even know it. That is a different form, okay? And again, these are general guidelines that do not apply to every applicant, but these are the basics, okay? All right, moving on. Another thing you need to think about is, can you speak, read, and write basic English? And do you have an understanding of U.S. history and government? The history and government are called the civics questions. Those are those 100 questions that everyone needs to learn. So a USCIS officer will test your ability to read, write, and speak English and your knowledge of the civics, those history questions. Applicants often fail the naturalization test because they cannot answer questions in English. And here I'm not talking about the civics questions or the reading and the very small reading and writing test in English. I'm talking about just small talk with the officer, talking about your application and your immigration history. Most of the interview is going to be discussing your application and your immigration history. So you need to have a certain level of English in order to pass the interview. So this is where a lot of people have trouble. So you don't need to be fluent. You don't need to be a high level of English, but you need to have basic understanding, talking low intermediate, high beginner, low intermediate, be able to carry on a conversation. Okay? To find English or citizenship classes, you can contact your local community college or an adult education program. I will have links below. Okay? You should be prepared for the English portion of your naturalization test when you apply. So they don't want you to apply and then all of a sudden I have to take an English class, right? You want to have that basic understanding of English before you apply because you don't know. It could take 8, 9, 10 months, but it could take 2 months. So you want to try to be ready when you apply. Okay? And at your naturalization interview, you will also be tested on your knowledge of U.S. history and government, and that is the civics questions. You will need to learn 100 civics questions, and the officer will ask you questions, and you'll need to answer those. Okay? Do you support the principles and ideals of the U.S. Constitution, and are you willing to swear an oath to the United States? All right, this is where you must be willing to support and defend the United States and the Constitution. You declare your attachment or loyalty to the United States and the Constitution when you take the oath of allegiance. You will take the oath of allegiance during your oath ceremony when you become an official U.S. citizen. And here you promise to be loyal to the United States and to give up loyalty to all other countries. Okay, so that is a big consideration there. Have you ever been married, divorced, widowed, or had your name legally changed? Okay. If yes, you will need to have a copy of your marriage certificate and also your divorce or annulment decree or death certificate of your former spouses to your interview. So if you're married now, you need your current marriage certificate, and if you were married previously, you'll need the divorce certificates as well to show that those previous marriages were terminated. Okay? And if you changed your name through a court, you could bring a copy of that court decree. Anything where you changed to show that you changed your name. Also, same thing for your current spouse. If he or she was married before, you'll need to bring evidence of the termination of those prior marriages. Moving on, have you ever been arrested, detained, or cited by the police or any other law enforcement officer? If yes, bring documents that show the court disposition of the case to your interview. Documents that show the final outcome of the case are required for all arrests and detentions, including expunged records and plea bargains. So even if a judge said, oh, your record is expunged, don't worry about it, it's not going to show up anywhere, you still need to disclose this information and bring those documents with you. Okay, if you were put on probation, bring evidence that you completed it. You cannot become a U.S. citizen until you have completed probation. Failing to provide this evidence could delay your case, and uncertified photocopies are not acceptable. You'll need to get those court documents, court records. And one more thing here, that word cited, they also will include traffic stops or traffic tickets, a speeding ticket, anything where you were stopped by an officer and given a ticket. Then you can also think about those, and you'll have to include those on your application. Now, small speeding tickets or red light camera tickets, things like that the fine was below $500, there was no alcohol, no drugs, no serious injury. You don't necessarily need documents for that. You can just disclose the information. All right. Have you traveled outside the United States since becoming a permanent resident? If yes, you'll need to show all foreign travel during the last 5 years or the last 3 years if you're applying based on marriage to a U.S. citizen. Now, here, this goes to the continuous residence and the physical presence in the United States. Most trips, short trips, are no problem. If you have trips longer than 6 months, this is where you're going to need extra documentation. Okay? Even if you have not traveled outside the United States as a permanent resident, you should still bring all your valid and expired passports and any travel documents issued by USCIS to your naturalization interview. Are you a man that lived in the U.S. between the ages of 18 and 26? If you are a man between the ages of 18 and 26, you must register for the Selective Service and provide proof that you did. If you are 26 or older, but still under 31, and you lived in the United States between the ages of 18 and 26, you must provide proof that you did register when you were required to do so. And if you were required to register but you did not, you must bring both a written statement explaining why you did not register and a letter from the Selective Service indicating your status to your interview. Okay. For more information about Selective Service or to get proof of registration, visit sss.gov, and I'll put these links below, so no worries. Have you reported your income on your income tax forms? Your tax returns are very important proof that you are eligible for naturalization. On the day of your interview, bring certified tax returns for the last 5 years, 3 years if you are married to a U.S. citizen. Certified tax transcripts may be ordered from the IRS. Okay, this is Form 4506-T, and they are available at irs.gov. And you'll need to, not everybody needs their taxes, but it is highly recommended that you bring them with you just in case. This is especially important for if you're applying based on marriage, because they will be looking for those joint tax returns for you and your spouse. Okay. Submit photocopies of your permanent resident card with your Form N-400, their application. If you are a lawful permanent resident, you must submit photocopies front and back of that green card. And you must bring your permanent resident card and a state-issued identification, such as a driver's license, to your interview. Also, the passports are a good idea here. And if you lost your permanent resident card, you can attach a copy of another entry document or a photocopy of a receipt showing that you have filed the Form I-90, which is that you can replace your green card. Are you eligible for a disability waiver or age-based exemption? Okay. You may not need to take the English and civics portions of the naturalization test if you have a medical disability that prevents you from demonstrating knowledge of the English or civics. And you can be eligible for this exemption if you're unable to learn and or demonstrate English and the history test and the civics test because of a physical or developmental disability or mental impairment. For this exemption, you will need a doctor form. The doctor must complete Form N-648, which is the medical certification for disability exemptions. And then you would submit this form with your application N-400. Okay? And that is Form N-648. There's also another exemption based on age and the length of time that you have lived in the United States as a permanent resident. So, for example, if you are age 50 or older and have been a permanent resident in the United States for 20 years at the time of filing, or if you're age 55 or older at the time of filing and you have been a permanent resident living in the United States for 15 years, these are English language exemptions. That means that you can take the entire interview in your native language with an interpreter. Okay? Now here you still need to take the civics test. You take it in your native language with an interpreter, but you'll still need to take that civics test. There is a special consideration for those of you who may be age 65 or older and have lived in the United States as a permanent resident for at least 20 years at the time of filing your application. Here, you would not have to learn all 100 civics questions. You only need to learn 20. Okay? All right, and this is important, and a lot of people forget for some reason. Sign the application and pay the correct fee. Okay, here you want to, so N-400 is the application. Make sure before you submit that N-400, you review it over and over again. Okay, make sure to sign the application and pay the correct fee. Now, beginning on April 1st, 2024, USCIS came out with a new N-400 application and a new filing fee schedule. So you want to make sure you submit the correct application and the correct fee. Okay, links will be below, no worries. And Above all, keep a copy of your application. I can't tell you how many times people do their application by hand and send it off, and they don't keep a copy. You need a copy of that application in order to review it before your interview. Okay. All right. And okay, so this is basically a fact sheet for the most commonly used documents. It's not all inclusive because, of course, everybody's immigration history is a little bit different. A USCIS officer may ask for other information and documents based on your immigration history, or if you've had any problems with the law, or if you are applying based on marriage, or based on military. There's military forms, things like that. So a lot of it is up to you and your history, okay? So a big thing here is if you have a question about your case, you can consult with a licensed attorney or accredited community organization. Links will be below. Just, please be careful of immigration scams. They are out there and it's so sad. So just be very careful. USCIS does not charge for any of these forms, okay? They do charge to file the form, but not for the actual form. All right, thank you for joining me today. Please leave questions and comments below. Take care, my friends. And if you haven't done so yet, please click on that subscribe button because it really helps us out, helps us to continue this channel. And as always, we will do what we can to help you find the answers you need. Okay, bye-bye for now. Have a good evening.